afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the ISO, I'd like to welcome you to the second Ancillary Services Focus Group Stakeholder Call. My name is Elena Kopolov-Alford, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the web conference today. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that this presentation is available on kaiso.com on our calendar in the calendar event for this meeting. I am joined today by Isabella Mahine, Associate Account Manager in Stakeholder Engagement, Priyanka Nambori, Senior Advisor in Energy Data Acquisition, David Acevedo, Lead Energy Data Acquisition Specialist, and Kelsey Ajax, Manager in Model and Contract Implementation. I have a couple housekeeping reminders before we get started. This call is being recorded for informational and convenience purposes only. Any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. The meeting is structured to stimulate dialogue and engage different perspectives. Please keep your comments professional and respectful, and please try and be brief and refrain from repeating what's already been said so we can manage our time efficiently today. To raise your hand, make sure you open up the participant and the chat panels from the bottom right of your WebEx screen. The raised hand icon is nestled at the bottom of the participant panel. If you connected outside of the WebEx, you can press *3 on your phone to get into the question queue. And however you raise your hand, please remember to state your name and affiliation before making your comments. If you are experiencing technical issues, any technical assistance during the meeting, you can send a chat to Ahmed, our event producer. They show as Intelor Events in the list of participants. And you can send all your chat questions to all panelists. So on our agenda for today, from here I'm going to hand it over to Isabella, who's going to cover the goals for today, the background and issue identification. Then we're going to review the stakeholder feedback from our last meeting. And then Isabella and Priyanka will go over the revised proposal to address AS testing requirements. And then we're going to have an open discussion before we wrap up with next steps. So from here, I'm going to hand it over to you, Isabella.
Thanks, Elena. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Isabella Mahine. I'm an account manager here at the ISO, and I'll be facilitating the focus group discussion today. So as a refresher, the focus group structure is kind of a new structure to the ISO, and it's really meant to embrace the flexibility and allow organic and robust conversation on a specific topic, in this case, ancillary services testing, with the goal of driving towards a solution collaboratively with stakeholders. So as Elena mentioned in covering the agenda, we're going to start off with the background and reason for the focus group, just to kind of give a refresher since our last meeting on March 31st. And then we'll take some time to look at some of the common stakeholder feedback themes that we received on that first focus group session, and then go into the revised proposal to address the testing requirements for the AS certified fleet. And we'll leave some time at the end for discussion. So if we can go to the next slide. So just to reiterate kind of the background and issue identification, that's really the root of this discussion today. So under Tariff Section 8.10, the ISO shall periodically conduct unannounced tests of resources providing ancillary services. So the frequency of that testing should be within such timeframes as are reasonable under all the circumstances. And that's led us to this issue identification or problem statement that under the current available market mechanisms, the ISO currently faces challenges ensuring testing of 100% of its resource certified to provide ancillary services within such timeframes as are reasonable under all the circumstances. This has led to a need to evaluate alternative ways to validate that AS resources can appropriately respond to and provide their certified AS amounts. So again, just some background for why we're here having the discussion today, and good to keep in mind as we move through this discussion today. So if we can go to the next slide. So some of the common feedback themes we got from the first focus group session on March 31st was, one, there was clarity requested surrounding the penalties and consequences surrounding non-performance under an attestation. So say the scheduling coordinator or resource owner received an attestation, signed it, submitted it, and then failed to perform after signing that attestation. really, there are no financial penalties. So failure to perform while under assigned attestation would still be subject to the same kind of consequences or penalties that a resource that has been tested and then failed to perform. So it wouldn't be different than the existing consequences. The second item here was that there was clarity requested on whether the attestation requirement would inform or impact the frequency of AS testing and or performance audits that the ISO conducts. So attestations are kind of in addition to the ISO's testing efforts. So the ISO does not have any plans to reduce the amount of tests or performance audits that we complete. So the attestation would not supplant or replace those testing efforts. Again, it would be kind of in addition to our current testing efforts. And then the third one here, the attestation should be signed by the resource owner as opposed to the scheduling coordinator. So this is something that we did hear from those who submitted comments and something that was a topic of discussion at the focus group on the 31st. So we have revised our proposal for the attestation, and we'll be covering that in more detail in just the next slide. But before we move to that next slide, are there any questions or comments on any of the feedback themes that we received from our first focus group? Okay. Then we can go ahead and move into the revised proposal. Next slide. Okay. So again, our problem statement here is posted at the top of the slide, just to keep that in mind. So our revised proposed solution here is that within 60 days upon notification from the CAISO, the scheduling coordinator must submit to CAISO the signed attestation, but the attestation itself would be signed by the resource owner on the resource's ability to provide AS services. So that notification, the initial notification, would go to the scheduling coordinator, and then it would be the scheduling coordinator's responsibility to contact the resource owner and get their signature on the attestation, and then the SC would need to submit it to the CAISO. So there were also some questions surrounding, what would happen if the attestation was not submitted. And so failure to submit the signed attestation within that 60-day notification period could result in the suspension or revocation of the resource's AS certification. And to the extent that the certification was revocated or revoked, then the resource would need to go through the recertification process. So any questions or thoughts on this revised proposal? Nothing. Okay. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Priyanka, and she's going to give a kind of verbal overview of what to expect with the attestation form, and then we can leave some time at the end of the call today for discussion, any comments or questions. So Priyanka?
Thank you, Isabella. So we are in a process of creating 2 documents for the self-assessment. The first one is the AS provider attestation, in which the entity acknowledges to the best of their ability that a resource can meet or exceed all applicable requirements, technical requirements for providing the AS services as per the CAISO tariff, BPM, and the operating procedure. This form will contain some fillable fields related to the resource, such as the resource ID, scheduling coordinator ID, and the details of the signatory, and also which AS product that you are attesting to. This form will be due 60 calendar days from the initial notification from the ISO. The second document that we are working on currently is the attestation criteria for the self-assessment. So it will contain the various requirements to be fulfilled by the resource owner as well as the scheduling coordinator, which you're already familiar with for all the AS products, and then also for the reg up and reg down surveys, and for the spin and non-spin reserve surveys as well. So once we are complete with creating these 2 documents and reviewed by our legal team, we will publish these 2 documents on our website. Any questions?
There are no hands in the queue, Priyanka. No questions in the chat.
Thanks for that overview, Priyanka. And as Priyanka noted, once those draft attestation documents have been reviewed and are ready to post, we will post them to the ISO website so that everyone can take a look and provide any feedback that you might have. So I know we have plenty of time for discussion, so if there are any questions, concerns, comments, please do raise them. Okay, it looks like we have a hand from Rhett.
Yeah, hi, afternoon. This is Rhett Nickel from SoCal Edison. Some of the things you're putting up here, raising a couple of questions. So the first one has to do with when you said that there's going to be no changes to the warning process and how that plays out. So does that mean then an attestation is equivalent to a successful test?
Kelsey or Priyanka, do you want to opine on that?
Yes, the attestation will be similar to the successful test.
So if there is any future failure, the clawback period would go back to whenever the attestation was signed?
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, as I understand it, if a resource fails to provide a service that it's been asked to provide, goes into a warning status. If it fails again, it becomes decertified. So that's on the operations side, but also on the settlement side, it's my understanding that there's a clawback of the capacity payments that also happens that go all the way back to the last time you successfully performed that service or were tested. So if there's no test being performed or the service has never actually been called and all you have is an attestation on file and there's a future failure, how far back did your clawback period go to?
Looks like we have a hand from Andrew. Yeah.
Andrew, go ahead.
I guess what is your proposal for how long we go back to? Trying to understand what an attestation, what it's equivalent to or would be to.
Hi, this is Andrew Wilmer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hey. Rhett, hi. Andrew Wilmer. I'm in the ISO's legal team. Great question. So I just to, I think, reemphasize something that Isabella mentioned. These attestations we are seeking are over and above the framework for performance audits and announced tests under Section 8 of our tariff. So the framework now anticipates that if a resource doesn't pass a performance audit or a compliance test, that it could be subject to penalties for a period of time that goes back. We refer to it in the tariff as the committed period, and that could result in a rescission of AS payments or AS self-provision credits. So the attestation will not inform that committed period. The attestation is not, if you will, a substitute for a performance audit or a compliance test. So that framework for how we might rescind AS payments or AS credits for the committed period is not informed in any way by this attestation. So this attestation would be over and above that performance audit compliance testing framework, and it really is building off of language in our tariff that requires ancillary service providers to do routine maintenance assessments on their abilities to provide AS services for which they're certified and offering into the markets. Does that help?
So, Andrew, thanks. So I guess what I'm hearing then is that the attestation provides no protection. There's no benefit to the resource. So ISO gets a benefit because you don't have to do the testing, but the resource owner gets no benefit because you're still subject to clawback all the way back to whenever you last performed. Is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't really feed in or into that calculus. Is the ISO going to do less testing? I'm not sure we will. In fact, I don't think we will. It's not the plan. It's really to try to give effect to some language in the tariff that has been there below these many years, that ancillary service providers have the obligation to conduct this routine check, maintenance, if you will, of their systems and equipment. What it might do is provide us with a little bit more assurance that the resources that are providing ancillary services, for which we haven't been able to conduct a performance audit or a compliance test while they're in production, for any number of reasons, that we have a greater certainty that those resources are capable of providing the AS if we were to, say, convert them to energy in an emergency condition. You know, we do have resources that provide AS very infrequently, but during times when we really need them to be carrying that capacity. And so having some assurance that if they are carrying that capacity, they're capable of being converted, I think provides our operations sort of greater relief. And then we have also resources that are carrying multiple ancillary services, which makes sometimes doing an unannounced test very difficult to do, because if we're going to test for span or non-span and the resource is also carrying reg, it creates complications in that space. So I guess, you know, who's benefiting from this? Hopefully all of us, in terms of you know, ensuring that the fleet that's out there providing AS is capable. You know, and if there are AS providers who are sort of uncertain about this attestation and don't see, you know, that it's appropriate for them to sign it, I mean, they do have the option. We do not have a must offer ancillary service or must certify ancillary service program. So if they elect not to continue to participate, that's an election.
So you're saying that you're going to force folks out of the market if they choose not to sign? Is that what I'm
No, we're not saying that. We're saying that, you know, if we can't get these attestations, that is a potential outcome, that depending on the facts and circumstances, we may exercise our tariff authority to suspend or revoke an AS certification, but that's sort of an extreme situation. And our expectation is that ancillary service providers are doing this. It is a tariff requirement today. And so it's simply, you know, and when you look at the draft attestation, which we'll publish on the website, I don't think you'll perceive it as overly burdensome. It's really just kind of documenting good utility practice.
Okay, I guess getting in those details will prove to be important and informative. But let me, for this next maybe question, I don't want to, if other folks have questions, I'll step aside and let them ask, but I've got a couple more.
We have other hands, but go ahead. We have plenty of time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand this right then. So if you submit an attestation and then eventually don't perform, that puts you into the warning process. Is that right? That, you know, I think I heard you say that nothing changes. So to me, right, they're in good standing. They signed the attestation saying they can perform. And then after, you know, some months later, a test or actual event happens and they don't perform, what would happen then? Would it just be into the warning status like usual?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yep. It would be, yeah, the same notices.
And so then, okay. And so then if you submit an attestation and don't perform, you go into the warning status. If you don't submit an attestation, you're essentially suspended or revoked. Is that right? You can't, you're going to be decertified. All right.
Potentially, as Andrew said, you know, that is something within our tariff authority, but again, it's one of the more extreme circumstances.
Extreme because you don't think people are not going to sign, or extreme because you think people who don't sign, you're not going to go down that path?
Andrew, do you want to opine on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be sort of facts and circumstances. If we have units, resources on the system that are providing ancillary services, and you know we observe that they're doing that, you know, on a regular basis, and this request for an executed attestation is out there, and we haven't received one, you know, there'd be some communication with the scheduling coordinator, and potentially, I suppose, the resource owner as to sort of what's the problem, and we probably want to, you know, sort of have a conversation and understand that. So
yeah, I think
again, I don't think we go straight to sort of sending a notice that we'd want to revoke or suspend an ancillary service certificate.
Yeah, I think what you've got to do then is make sure that the attestation elements are aligned completely with the certification requirements. Right? I can see I looked at the attestation requirements that you initially put out, and I can see cases where a resource could get certified and, you know, be successfully in the market, but still at the same time not be able to sign some of the elements of attestation. So if there's a difference between what you have to do to get certified and what you're asking somebody to sign, I could see where that might become problematic. So I think we need to, if we go down this path, we need to be careful to make sure that what we're asking folks to sign it lines up with what the requirements are for certification for all the services.
Yeah, that's good feedback.
All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Brett. Let's have a couple more.
Go to our next hand. Yeah, let's go to Kathleen.
Great, thank you. This is Kathleen Colbert from Vistra. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for that conversation as well. This may be a question for Andrew. To save a little bit of time on my side, but also for hopefully others' edification as well, can you point me to that section of the tariff if you're thinking of a specific section within Section 8, subsection within Section 8? I just wanted to read it.
Andrew, but I believe it's Section 8.9. Is that the one you're referring to?
And Andrew, we're going to keep you unmuted on our side, so if you have to toggle your own mute button, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute on my end. Hi, Kathleen, good to hear your voice. And Isabella is correct. It's Section 8.9. It's the first paragraph under Section 8.9. There's a sentence that reads, "All ancillary service providers shall check, monitor, and/or test their system and related equipment routinely to assure availability of the committed ancillary services."
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you pointing me to the specific section. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thanks, Kathleen. We have a hand from Tiffany. Let's go to her.
Hi, this is Tiffany Bloom, PG&E. I'm really kind of struggling to sort out the purpose for the attestation, and if it's solely to remind participants about tariff verbiage, why a reminder wouldn't just go out about tariff verbiage, since the testing capabilities or the AS capabilities of a site is dependent on CAISO tested values. SCs are supposed to verify and test their own resources in alignment with the CAISO tested values, and why CAISO wouldn't just have a resource test to prove capability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Tiffany. Kelsey, did you want to expand on that?
Sure, yeah, I might be able to help with that. So, you know, this is really just due to the number that we have. We're kind of like looking at how do we make this up, given that, you know, certain resources are available during, you know, not ideal times to test. You know, there's a various number of reasons why it may be difficult to test certain resources. So this is kind of that in addition to. Now, with that said, there is always the option to have, you know, to request a test from CAISO, and we can do that additional test you know, as means of how to test your systems and make sure things are up and running if you want us to give it that extra look as well.
So in lieu, no, that makes sense. In lieu of an attestation with ISO permit testing?
Well, the attestation, one of the options within the attestation would be a CAISO-initiated test. So, you know, that would, I believe we still would have the attestation returned, and then you could put in the comments that a CAISO-initiated test was done as your form of verification.
But it would have to be a CAISO-initiated test. Would it count if an SC were to ask for a test from CAISO and schedule one? So SC initiated, but through CAISO?
Yes, we can do that.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we had one question in the chat. Let me read that out. From Jennifer Fletcher, can you confirm the attestation is in lieu of testing or in addition to testing?
Yeah, so that it would be in addition, not in lieu of our testing efforts.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions right now.
Yeah, and it looks like Rhett asked for us to reference the tariff section in the chat, so I'll post it in there. It's tariff section 8.9.
Oh, and then we have from Nikki and Mom, would the test in lieu of the attestation still have the 60-day requirement?
So just to clarify, I don't think we said it would be in lieu of the attestation. It would just be a form of verification that, you know, could be done for the attestation. And so it would still need to happen within the 60-day requirement.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. And then we have a new hand from Tiffany.
Sorry, I guess I'm the one that made the statement of the in lieu of attestation. So if we were to test the resource capabilities, we would still also need to sign an attestation for said resource. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think that's what we would do.
There's no out for the for signing the attestation if capability was otherwise proven in a test.
I mean, I think we could discuss it, but the way I see it is that once we requested the attestation, we'd want it to be provided so that you would still be provided once the test was done, as kind of that signatory of we did a test, you know, through means of CAISO initiated or SC initiated through a CAISO testing mechanism, and that's kind of documenting that.
Okay, well, okay, I'll see where this process goes to see if I have any follow-up questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Any other questions? Okay. All right, then could we move to the next slide? And the next one. And I think that brings us to our next step. So Yelena, I'll turn things back to you to cover next steps.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here is our schedule. So we've got the focus group today. We've got the comments due in 2 weeks on the 19th. And then if needed, we do have this tentative 6/26 date as a third meeting. And then we have July 10th as our date for publishing the final procedure. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is just a reminder that there's not an initiative page for this, that any written comments that you have to please submit them to this email address, asnotifications@caiso.com by the end of day on May 19th. And if you've got any questions, you can email us at isostakeholderaffairs@caiso.com. Rhett, we've got a hand up. Let's go to Rhett.
I think, yeah. Hi, have you posted everyone's comments?
So the comments have not been posted.
When do you expect that to be? Because we already had one round, right?
Correct. Kelsey, Do we intend to post the comments?
We can, if that's typical. We have them.
Yeah, we'll get those posted so everyone can review. And then once the draft attestation is available and posted, we'll also send a notice out to let everyone know. And we'll, if needed, we can extend the comment period to make time to submit comments on or feedback on the attestation or the working group discussion today.
Okay, and that will continue to go to that, I don't know, I'll call it unusual site, the meeting notice site, as opposed to the initiative site?
It's like a miscellaneous. Yeah. It's a miscellaneous page. So the easiest way to find it is if you go to the events, like today's meeting or the last meeting, when you click there, it'll have a link to that miscellaneous page and it'll also get posted there. So the comments from the March 31st meeting, you can go to that March 31st event and they'll get posted there.
Okay. Okay.
So it'll when it gets posted there, the way the new website works, it gets posted there and then it'll be under this AS focus group section and the miscellaneous page as well.
Okay, we'll look for the comments there then. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get that matrix posted. Okay, and then there's a question from Jennifer Fletcher. Does this change to add attestation require tariff filing at FERC, or is this a BPM or similar change?
Andrew, can you opine on that one?
Yeah, sure. This is probably more in the space of an operating procedure, not a business practice manual change or a tariff change. We're just affecting language in the tariff.
Okay, and then there's a question, is the attestation, from Nikki Imam, is the attestation criteria still what was outlined in the last presentation?
Yes, that's correct.
Rhett, is that a new hand?
Heard from Andrew kind of surprised me. So operating procedures have the lowest amount of rigor, right? And to me, we thought this would be at the BPM at the least, more likely a tariff. But Andrew, did I hear you right? You're saying this is going to be an operating procedure change?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably more in the space of an operating procedure in terms of us going through a process to confirm with ancillary service providers that they're checking their systems. Our testing program is set forth in the tariff as is this language about ancillary service providers checking their systems, but it's all operationalized, if you will, or it's all affected through operating procedures that are on our website.
And you feel like you have the authority to do this already then?
Yes, is the simple answer.
Right, to essentially tell someone they have to sign a legally binding document or else, you know, their ability to participate is going to be heavily scrutinized and likely withdrawn. You're feeling like that can be done in an operating procedure?
We haven't framed it in that regard, but we think we can.
Effectively, that's what it is, though, right?
We can make this request and reach out to ancillary service providers to check on this through an operating procedure or similar protocol, yes.
So how long, so maybe this is a question then for the organizers of this non-initiative initiative. I think you put up a timeline earlier, but how long do we have to, until we have to kind of, you know, question that approach? Right? There are other means, right? I'm an operational guy, right? So I see this on the ground, but we have folks certainly that deal with these kinds of things on, you know, compliance and legal grounds. So it looks like if we want to make comments, we have a couple days to do that for this round, and then we'll have another shot at it by June. If there's disagreement in that area.
You have 2 weeks. Yeah, you have 2 weeks before the comments are due. So the 19th.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And if you need more time internally to review, please let us know. We're willing to work with you.
Okay.
All right. I am going to go to the coverage for our meetings for this week and submission deadline, just so you have a place where you connect to all the links and all the other calendar events. We will have our trainings listed here, our BPM updates, as well as a reminder to subscribe to the Energy Matters blog for insights into the ISO grid and market operations. Be on the lookout for this blog, and the link to subscribe is here at the bottom. I'm not seeing any other questions for today. Thank you, everybody, for your discussion, and thank you for joining. This is going to be posted by the end of the week. The recording will get posted to that same event, and you can also find it on our CAISO YouTube. Thank you for joining. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
This event has concluded. Thank you for using Event Services. You may now disconnect.